Welcome to 90s Noise. I'm April, born 1991.
And I'm Ashley, born in 1988.
First episode here. I'm just getting into the nitty gritty of how we're going to be moving forward with this podcast. Just a little bit about ourselves. We met in 2019 at an Allie and AJ concert. That was fun in Orlando. And it's been a crazy ride since. Definitely been doing a lot of things together. Unfortunately, now we're a little distance between us, but we are trying to help use this podcast to make sure that we stay connected and can connect with other people like-minded. What you gotta say about that, Ashley?
Oh yeah, that was such a fun experience, and honestly, what a way to start our friendship.
We have a major love of 1990s decade. A big part of that is that's when we grew up. We both got to enjoy the majority of the 90s, had very different childhoods.
Oh, I'm sure.
Honestly. Well, just from what we kind of have been discussing beforehand, you living Central Florida area for most of it with an older sister, me in Kansas with two older brothers. We definitely had a differing views of the 90s and what we enjoyed too, what we were exposed to. And so that's kind of part of why we're doing this, to figure out where we can bridge that gap.
Yeah, I grew up in Central Florida, and I had an older sister who I know influenced me as a child, and I liked a lot of the same things that she did. Yeah, gonna dive right in, talk about all the different TV shows and movies, all the music we grew up on, things that really just shaped us into our adult years, really.
Yeah, and big things. So much of the 90s is coming back in remakes and people taking the fashion from it. Also, a lot of the music is coming back too. People just coming back on tour for one. I mean, that's been insane, even with COVID and everything. I know I've been watching tours, and some of those tours coming back, I'm like, hey, wait, what year are we in again? Is this 2022? Or are we back in mid 90s? That's where a lot of things we're going to be touching on this. Each episode, we're going to kind of take a genre of the 90s and dive into what made life like for us. Hopefully, other people can enjoy that and reminisce with us and be able to just enjoy it. That's our goal here. So we want to be open and connected to everybody.
And that's what this podcast is all about. We're going to be taking each episode and discussing a different genre and breaking it all down year by year and really just touching base on everything that we really enjoyed growing up through the 90s. And
so what was, just honestly, Ashley, for you, what was one of the biggest things in any of that decade that stands out to you? I know we'll go through year by year, but just what was whether it was a big year or a movie or music or show, what was when you think of the 1990s, what stands out most to you?
Ooh, that's a hard one. There's a lot of things that I felt really defined my childhood, and looking back at everything now and like going through all the memorabilia and the photos and just seeing kind of what I was doing. I don't know, there was a lot of great influences through the music, I felt. I mean, I had listened to a lot of things that I definitely don't listen to now, but I appreciate all of what it brought. But probably one movie that stands out to me the most that I still consider one of my favorites to this day is A Little Princess. So that came out in 1995, and I just absolutely loved everything about that movie. And I know I watched it over and over and again and memorized all of the lines and just really wanted to live in that same fantasy world that the girls had created. I just thought it was a very fascinating movie. So yeah, I would have to say that's probably one of the bigger things that influenced me and just really stands out. as far as what the 90s means to me.
I hear you. I just looking back to me personally, 1993 was a big year, which is crazy because
Really?
thinking about it,
You're a
yeah,
baby.
I know, that's the thing. I was 2 years old, and I just remember, so looking back, most of my favorite movies came out that year. I one of the my first memories from movies was that year. Going to the movie theater for my oldest brother's birthday. That was a huge thing for me. That was to go see Three Musketeers, which it was a very molding year for me. Like it molded a lot of my favorite movie genres and big fantasy and action. I remember it very clearly, and it's hard to, people are always like, your brain doesn't fully form memories until you're a certain age, but I flat out tell them I remember when I was 2 years old,
Mhm.
which is interesting, but that was a big thing for me, definitely, was the year 1993 in general for movies, especially. Definitely one thing that I'm excited to dive into and see where everybody else is on that. It's going to be a ride, that's for sure. This podcast, we're going to dive into a lot of different things. And some of the shows that you had listed, or movies I was looking at, I'm like, I don't know if I actually ever saw those. So once we get to that point, it's gonna be very interesting. I know you had said that you guys hadn't seen, or had at least seen for a while, a few of the ones that I had put on there. So
Mhm.
that's definitely gonna be opening our horizon.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see kind of what shaped your childhood too. There's so much content out there, and I think honestly, there's a lot of hate being put on the 90s too as not being a great decade either. So I'm excited for us to talk all about it and share the positive side of it, and hopefully convince people that the 90s were pretty awesome.
They were. I know a lot of people say it was a leftover of the 80s, but I guess in a sense that helped shape the 90s. We wouldn't have
Mhm.
had the fashion, the music, all of that without what came before. I'm excited to do deep dives into all of this and share with everybody our outlook on what's shaped us, and then hear from other people too, and be able to connect and know that others are out there.
Yes, hopefully there are others out there. We're not the only ones, I'm sure.
I don't think we are, especially just with all the different nostalgias coming out, just being here in the St. Pete area of Florida. There's a handful of different bars and restaurants that are themed towards the 90s. I mean, we've got the one in Orlando that looking to
Mm.
come over and hit up is One Up, that arcade bar, and that took over joysticks. That right there is a huge, huge thing for the 90s that
Mhm.
I think is going to be very, I don't think those are going away. I
Right.
think people have a yearning for it, and especially after with the pandemic and staying at home, people had to do deep dives back into movies and shows and binging all the streaming services. They went back, I know we did, went back to some older stuff, some movies from the 90s, went back and rewatched because what the heck? We were at home. We couldn't go anywhere. I think a lot of people, that helped remind them that the 90s was actually a pretty good decade. It wasn't quite all unhappy, bad, whatever you want to call it. It had some good points, and we're going to focus on those, not really dive into too much of the negativity that shaped the 90s too. But we're not going to be gossiping. This isn't going to be a gossip podcast. That's one thing for sure. This is more our opinions. Obviously we'll take other people's opinions, and it's, hey, everybody has the right to their own.
And next week, we're going to start it all off with music from the year 1990. Going to be talking about some of those really big hits, some that probably a lot of you know, but also touching on some of those more obscure songs that maybe we all forgot about. Going to be rewatching some of those music videos. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to get back into those songs from that year. It's going to be a lot of interesting stuff.
1990 was a very interesting year for music, that was for sure. Definitely had some good songs, some interesting songs. We are definitely going to be diving into that a little bit more. Ashley?
I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready for this. Let's go. We have so much good content and hopefully we're going to have some great guests on the show. That's our goal. And yeah, we just look forward to hearing from everyone else, kind of their experiences as well. So, make sure to check out our Instagram. What's our Instagram, April?
It is 90s noise, and it's 90 and S noise. So we'll definitely link that. We will be updating that and potentially getting patron set up, especially if once we start getting some guests lined up. We definitely want to be able to have other people on here share their experience, and that'll definitely be fun for us and fun for everybody listening. Going into our closets, finding all of those pictures that that we buried away for a long time, but one of these days gotta see the light. And what better time than now? It's been a good 22 years since the 90s happened,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we might as well just rip that band-aid off and show those crazy hairstyles and all of those crazy fashion choices too. Those high water pants, and
Ooh.
I can see some of those pictures of mine already, where with those little choker necklaces and everything. That was
Oh my
no
gosh, I
later.
can't wait to see all these pictures.
I gotta find them again myself. We definitely will be back for episode 2. We'll be coming back
Absolutely.
with those taste of musics.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.